Chapter 1: The Stage of Secrets. The air inside Orium, Manhattan's crown jewel of dining, shimmered with the kind of opulence that made even the wealthy pause. Crystal chandeliers cast prisms across white tablecloths, and the faint clink of baccarat glassware underscored hushed conversations. Nestled in the heart of the Flatiron District, Orium wasn't just a restaurant. It was a battlefield for the elite, where status was measured in glances and whispered judgments. On this crisp November evening in 2025, the Brooks family gathered for their annual dinner, a tradition steeped in competition and veiled disdain. At the center of it all stood Claire Donovan, understated in a sleek black dress, her emerald studs glinting like quiet defiance. Claire stepped through the arched entrance, her heels clicking against the polished marble floor. The maitre d', a wiry man with a practiced smile, greeted her by name. "Ms. Donovan?" with a deference that made Ethan Brooks, her older brother, raise an eyebrow. Ethan, in a tailored Tom Ford suit, stood beside his wife, Lauren, whose diamond necklace screamed Tribeca Penthouse. They exchanged a glance, smug and knowing, as Claire approached the table. To them, Claire was the family's black sheep, the one who'd abandoned Brooks Capital 12 years ago at 25 to chase some foolish dream about drones. They'd chosen Orium tonight, not for its Michelin-starred menu, but to rub her nose in their success, assuming she'd squirm at the prices. "Claire, you actually made it," Ethan drawled, his voice dripping with mock surprise as he sipped a $200 0-cents glass of Bordeaux. "I was half expecting you to pull up in that rusty Toyota of yours. Remember that thing? Barely held together with duct tape." Lauren, her lips painted a predatory red, let out a tinkling laugh. "Oh, Ethan, be nice. We almost picked a diner for Claire's sake. Somewhere budget-friendly." She leaned toward Margaret, their mother, and stage whispered, "I mean, Orium's a bit much for her, don't you think?" Margaret, regal in a Chanel blazer, adjusted her pearl brooch and gave a tight smile. "Claire's always been resourceful. I'm sure she'll manage." Claire slid into her seat, her expression serene, almost amused. She wore no logos, no ostentatious jewelry beyond Aunt Eleanor's emerald studs, a gift from the only family member who'd ever seen her clearly. Her portfolio, a closely guarded secret, could buy half of Midtown, $4,800,000,000, 0 cents in assets, anchored by Paragon Ventures, the drone empire she'd built from a single InVideo deal 6 years ago. But to her family, she was still the girl who'd walked away from Brooks Capital, their Wall Street juggernaut, to tinker with toys. They didn't know she owned 51% of the Orium Group, acquired last fall in a discreet deal that had Wall Street buzzing with rumors. Tonight, she'd let them play their games. She always did. The table was a microcosm of the Brooks dynasty. Richard, their father, sat at the head, his silver hair and steely gaze commanding the room. As patriarch of Brooks Capital, he'd turned a modest hedge fund into a $15 billion 0 cents empire, and he wore his success like armor. Ethan, the anointed heir and CFO, thrived on his father's approval, his every word laced with the arrogance of someone who'd never failed. Lauren, a former model turned influencer, clung to Ethan's arm, her Instagram perfect life a carefully curated lie. Margaret, the matriarch, orchestrated these dinners like a chess grandmaster, her subtle barbs sharper than any knife. And then there was Claire, the outlier, sipping her wine and watching the performance unfold. "So, Claire," Ethan said, leaning back with a grin, "still playing with your little drones? Or have you finally given up and gotten a real job?" His tone was light, but his eyes gleamed with malice. Claire tilted her head, her smile faint. "Drones are doing fine, Ethan. How's Brooks Capital? I heard you were scrambling for investors last quarter." The table went still. Ethan's grin faltered, but he recovered quickly, waving a hand. "Scrambling? Hardly. We're closing a $1,200,000,000 zero-cents deal with Nexus Logistics tomorrow. Biggest in our history. You wouldn't understand the scale of it, Claire. It's not exactly toy airplanes." Lauren giggled, brushing her hair back to flash her Cartier bracelet. "Oh, Ethan, don't overwhelm her. Claire's probably still fixing that old Toyota in her garage. What was it, a '98 Corolla? I bet it's still leaking oil." Claire's lips twitched. She hadn't driven that Toyota in a decade. Last night she'd flown into Teterboro Airport on her Bombardier Global 7500, a $78 million zero-cents jet with a custom eco-friendly interior. Paragon's fleet of 1,200 drones operated across 5 continents, delivering medical supplies, mapping disaster zones, and securing military contracts. Her company's valuation had hit $2,500,000,000 zero cents last month, and she'd just acquired Nexus Logistics, the very company Ethan was banking on, in a silent $900 million zero cents deal. But she said nothing, letting Lauren's laughter fill the silence. Richard cleared his throat, his voice low and commanding. "Claire, independence is admirable, but it's a flaw when it blinds you. You could have been a partner at Brooks Capital by now. Instead, you're, what, chasing hobbies?" Claire met his gaze, unflinching. "Hobbies that keep me busy, Dad. You'd be surprised." Margaret raised an eyebrow, her tone icy. "Surprised? Hardly. Your Aunt Eleanor always said you were stubborn. Pity she's not here to see you, persisting." Claire's fingers brushed her emerald studs, a pang of loss hitting her. Eleanor, the only one who'd known the truth about Paragon, had passed 2 years ago. She'd been Claire's confidant, the one who'd celebrated her NVIDIA deal, $50 million zero cents in seed money that had launched her empire. Eleanor had urged her to keep her success quiet, to let the family underestimate her. "They'll choke on their pride one day," she'd said. Claire had taken it to heart. The waiter arrived, presenting the $450 zero cents chef's tasting menu with a flourish. Claire ordered it without hesitation, her voice calm. "I'll have the full experience. Wine pairing too." Ethan choked on his Bordeaux, Lauren's eyes widened, and Margaret's fork paused midair. "Claire," Ethan said, his tone sharp, "that's a bit extravagant, don't you think? I mean, no offense, but can you even—" "Performing for us, are you?" Lauren cut in, her smile venomous. "Don't overextend yourself, sweetie. We'd hate for you to struggle later." Claire shrugged, sipping her wine. "I'll manage." The table erupted in whispers. Margaret leaned toward Lauren, muttering about irresponsibility. Ethan smirked, assuming Claire was bluffing to save face, but the maitre d', hovering nearby, caught Claire's eye and gave a subtle nod. He knew who she was, not just a guest, but the majority owner of the Orium Group. Last fall, she'd saved the restaurant chain from bankruptcy, restructuring its debt and modernizing its operations. Her name wasn't on any public documents, but the staff knew. They always did. As the first course arrived, foie gras with truffle foam, Ethan shifted gears, his voice booming with self-importance. "Let's talk about something that matters. Lauren, tell them the big news." Lauren beamed, her teeth gleaming under the chandelier light. "Ethan's about to make history with Brooks Capital. The Nexus Logistics deal? It's a game changer. $1,200,000,000 zero cents, and Ethan's leading the pitch tomorrow. Their CEO's flying in on a private jet. Serious power moves." Ethan puffed out his chest. "Nexus is the future of supply chains. We're talking global reach, AI-driven logistics, the works. Their CEO's a mystery, though. No one knows who they are. But you don't fly a Gulfstream G700 unless you're playing in the big leagues." Richard nodded, his approval rare and weighty. "Impressive, Ethan. This is what real ambition looks like." Claire's smile was razor thin, She knew Nexus's CEO because she was Nexus's CEO. Paragon had acquired the company 6 months ago, integrating its logistics network into her drone empire. Ethan's pitch tomorrow was to her team, and she'd already instructed them to cancel. She hadn't planned to attend, but watching Ethan's confidence swell was almost too delicious to resist. "Private jets, huh?" Claire said, her tone light. "Sounds like a lot of emissions. Ever think about eco-friendly options?" Ethan snorted. "Eco-friendly? Claire, this is business, not a Greenpeace rally. Stick to your drones." Lauren laughed, but Richard's eyes narrowed. "Claire, you've always had a knack for irrelevant tangents. Focus on what's real." Claire let it slide, her mind drifting to Paragon's new jet terminal at Van Nuys Airport, designed for carbon needle aviation. She'd funded it herself, a $200 million zero-cents project that had environmentalists and tech moguls buzzing. But here, at this table, she was still the naive dreamer, the one who'd failed by leaving Brooks Capital. The dinner progressed, each course more extravagant than the last. Wagyu beef with gold leaf, caviar with yuzu gel. Ethan dominated the conversation, recounting Brooks Capital's triumphs while Lauren name-dropped their celebrity neighbors in Tribeca. Claire listened, her silence mistaken for defeat. She noticed the waiter's subtle deference, the way the sommelier lingered at her side, offering a rare vintage not on the menu. Her family didn't notice. They never did. Then Ethan's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, his face paling. "Excuse me," he muttered, pushing back his chair and striding toward the lobby. Claire caught Lauren's worried glance but said nothing, savoring her wine. In the lobby, Ethan's voice echoed through the glass doors. "What do you mean, cancelled? This is a $1,200 million zero-cents deal. Get me their CEO. Now." Claire's lips curved. She'd told her team to pull the plug an hour ago, citing strategic misalignment. Ethan's panic was a symphony, each note perfectly pitched. She could have ended it there, revealed her hand. But where was the fun in that? Back at the table, Lauren fidgeted, her composure cracking. "It's probably nothing," she said, her voice high. "Ethan's got this under control." Richard's jaw tightened. He'd better. Brooks Capital doesn't tolerate failure. Margaret sighed, her eyes flicking to Claire. Unlike some people, Ethan knows what's at stake. Claire leaned back, her emerald studs catching the light. "Stakes are funny things," she said softly. "You never know who's holding the cards." The table fell silent, her words hanging like smoke. Lauren's smile faltered, and Richard's gaze sharpened, sensing something he couldn't name. Claire sipped her wine, her mind already on tomorrow. Ethan's pitch was dead, but the real game was just beginning. She'd built Paragon in the shadows, outmaneuvering her family at every turn. Tonight they'd mocked her. Tomorrow they'd learn who she really was. And Claire Donovan, the underestimated sister, the dreamer with a rusty Toyota, would be there to watch them choke on their pride. Chapter 2. The Reckoning. The chandelier light in Orium's private dining room flickered, casting long shadows across the Brooks family's table. The air was thick with tension, the kind that precedes a storm. Claire Donovan sat calmly, her emerald studs glinting as she sipped her wine, her family's smugness unraveling before her. Ethan's earlier bravado had cracked with his panicked lobby outburst, and now, as the dessert course loomed, Lauren Brooks, ever the social strategist, seized the moment to shift the narrative. "Oh, let's not dwell on business glitches," Lauren said, her voice a forced lilt, her diamond necklace catching the light like a distress signal. She leaned forward, addressing the table but aiming her words at Claire. "Did you know we own a 4% stake in the Orium Group? Quite the coup for Brooks Capital. Shareholders get certain perks." Her smile was sharp, a challenge disguised as small talk. Claire's lips curved faintly, her eyes unreadable. She'd approved their share purchase last spring through a Paragon Ventures shell company, a move so discreet even Wall Street's sharpest analysts hadn't connected the dots. The stake was a breadcrumb, a way to keep Brooks Capital tethered to her empire without them knowing. "Perks," Claire said softly, swirling her wine. "Fascinating." Before Lauren could press further, the waiter appeared. A silver tray bearing a bottle of 2005 Chateau Petrusou, its label gleaming like a rare artifact. He set it before Claire with a deferential bow. "Compliments of the owner. Miss Donovan, a token of appreciation for your patronage." The table froze. Lauren's fork clattered against her plate. Ethan, still rattled from his phone call, squinted at the bottle. "It's $6,000, 0 cents price tag," a silent scream. "The owner?" Lauren sputtered, her composure fraying. "There's been a mistake. We're shareholders. If anyone's getting free wine, it's us." The waiter's smile was polite, impenetrable. "No mistake, ma'am. This is for Ms. Donovan." Claire raised her glass, unruffled, her gaze locking with Lauren's. "Two unexpected gestures," she said, her tone laced with something dangerous, like a blade hidden in silk. The wine was a signal, a quiet flex of her 45% ownership in the Orium Group, a fact her family would learn soon enough. Ethan's phone buzzed again, shattering the moment. He glanced at the screen, his jaw tightening, and excused himself with a curt, "I'll be right back." Lauren's eyes followed him, her fingers twisting her napkin. Claire sipped her Petrus, savoring the irony. She knew the message was from Nexus Logistics, a second confirmation of the cancelled meeting. The trap was set, and Ethan was walking straight into it. The next morning, Manhattan's skyline glittered under a cold November sun, the glass spire of Paragon Tower piercing the clouds. On the 52nd floor, Claire stood by a floor-to-ceiling window, her reflection sharp against the city below. Her black suit was tailored to precision, her emerald studs the only nod to sentiment. She watched Ethan pace in the conference room below, his Armani suit rumpled, his confidence replaced by a nervous energy that bordered on desperation. Paragon Tower, a $1,200,000,000 0 cents architectural marvel in Hudson Yards, was Claire's fortress. She'd built it 3 years ago, its sleek design a testament to her vision. Sustainable, cutting edge, untouchable. Brooks Capital leased 3 floors here, a detail Ethan never questioned, assuming it was just another expense of their empire. He didn't know Claire owned the building, just as he didn't know she owned Nexus Logistics, or that she was about to dismantle his world. Ethan wasn't alone. Richard Brooks, his silver hair catching the light, sat at the conference table, his presence a silent demand for success. Lauren, in a cream Gucci dress, hovered nearby, her nervous chatter filling the room. They'd come to support Ethan's Nexus pitch, unaware that Claire had orchestrated every move. She'd scheduled an email from Nexus's CEO herself, set to send in 10 minutes, rejecting Brooks Capital with surgical precision. The timing was deliberate, designed to hit when Ethan's hope peaked. Claire's phone pinged, a text from David, her chief operating officer. "Execs are ready, shall I drop the hint?" She typed back, "Go for it, make it sting." In the conference room, the Paragon executives entered, led by David, a former Navy SEAL with a handshake like a vice. Ethan stood, smoothing his tie, expecting Nexus's elusive CEO. Instead, David offered a crisp nod. "Mr. Brooks, I'm David Callahan, Paragon Ventures. Nexus Logistics sends their regards. Their CEO won't be joining us today." Ethan blinked, confused. "Not joining? I was told—" David cut him off, his tone polite but edged. "Plans change. Ms. Donovan asked me to convey her personal regards, though. She's invested in this meeting." Ethan's brow furrowed. "Claire? What does she have to do with—" His phone chimed. He glanced at it, his face draining of color as he read the email from Nexus's CEO. "Mr. Brooks, after careful review, Nexus Logistics has declined to partner with Brooks Capital. Concerns regarding financial transparency and strategic alignment were decisive factors. We wish you well. SCE. Donovan, C. Ethan's hand trembled, the phone slipping slightly. This can't be right, he stammered. Claire Donovan? My sister? She's not... Lauren laughed, a brittle sound. Oh, please. Claire's not involved with Nexus. She's probably just some assistant who got her name on the email. This is a mix-up. David's smile was cold. He tapped a remote and a massive screen lit up behind him, projecting a profile that silenced the room. Claire Donovan, CEO of Paragon Ventures, net worth $9,500,000,000, founder of a global drone empire, owner of Nexus Logistics, Paragon Tower, and 45% of the Orium Group. The air vanished. Ethan slumped into his chair, his breath shallow. Lauren's face drained, her Gucci dress suddenly looking like a costume. Richard froze, his steely gaze fracturing into something Claire had never seen. Fear. The conference room doors swung open, and Claire entered, her presence a quiet thunderclap. She wore no pretense, no gloating smile, just the calm assurance of someone who'd already won. Good morning, she said, her voice steady. I trust you've read my email. Ethan's mouth opened, but no words came. Lauren's eyes darted, searching for an escape that didn't exist. Richard's hands clenched, his knuckles white. Claire took her place at the head of the table, her emerald studs catching the light like a warning. Let's clear things up, Claire said, her tone conversational but lethal. Nexus Logistics is mine. Acquired 6 months ago for $900 million. 0 cents. The jet Ethan admired? My Bombardier, not a Gulfstream. And that Toyota Lauren loves to mock? It's serviced by my dealership in Greenwich. I haven't driven it in years. Lauren's voice was a whisper. This isn't possible. Claire's gaze sharpened. Oh, it's possible. And here's something else. Paragon Tower, where you're sitting. I own it. Brooks Capital's lease? I approved it. And the Orium Group? My 45% stake trumps your 4%, Lauren. That wine last night wasn't a mistake. Ethan's face twisted, a mix of rage and disbelief. You're lying. You left Brooks Capital. You were nothing. Nothing? Claire's voice cut like glass. She leaned forward, her eyes locking with his. While you were buying Rolls-Royces, I built a $9,500,000,000 0 cents empire. While you mocked my drones, I secured contracts with NATO, FEMA, and the UN. And while you thought you were winning, I uncovered your dirty little secret. She tapped her tablet, and the screen shifted to a financial ledger, numbers glowing like indictments. Brooks Capital's been siphoning $2,800,000, 0 cents, offshore through shell companies in the Caymans. False invoices, inflated contracts, all traced back to you, Ethan. The SEC's very interested. Ethan's breath hitched. You're bluffing. You can't... I don't bluff, Claire said. She turned to Richard. And you, Dad. You knew. You signed off on the audits, buried the discrepancies. Your legacy's a house of cards. Richard's voice was a growl. You wouldn't dare. Brooks Tremendu Capital is our blood. Claire's smile was ice. Not anymore. As of this morning, Paragon Ventures has acquired Brooks Capital in a $3,200,000,000 0 cents hostile takeover. I own 62% of your shares, bought through proxies over the last 18 months. Ethan, you're fired. Resign now or the SEC gets my report by noon. The room imploded. Ethan's face collapsed, his hands shaking. Lauren's eyes filled with tears, her perfect world shattering. Richard stood, his voice trembling. This is our legacy, Claire. You can't... Your legacy is corruption, Claire snapped. You mocked me for 12 years, called my dreams a joke. You built your empire on lies. I built mine on truth. Lauren's voice broke, her mascara streaking. Ethan, tell me you didn't... The money, the accounts... Ethan's silence was damning. Lauren's hand flew to her mouth, her humiliation complete. She'd married a fraud, and Claire had exposed it in front of everyone. Claire stood, her voice steady. Ethan, your resignation, now. Ethan scrawled his signature on a document David slid forward, his hand shaking. He looked at Claire, his eyes hollow. You've destroyed us. No, Claire said. You did that yourselves. The fallout was swift. By noon, news of Brooks Capital's acquisition hit Bloomberg, the stock spiking 18% as Paragon's audit team restructured the firm. Ethan's resignation was public, his reputation in tatters. Lauren filed for divorce that afternoon, her Tribeca penthouse listed for sale by evening. Richard announced his retirement, retreating to a gated estate in Palm Beach, his legacy a footnote. Claire didn't gloat. She spent the afternoon in Paragon's war room, overseeing the integration of Brooks Capital's assets. Her team uncovered more, forged contracts, bribed regulators, a $10 million 0-cents slush fund tied to Ethan's personal accounts. The SEC launched an investigation, but Claire's evidence was airtight, shielding Paragon from scrutiny. A week later, Margaret Brooks requested a meeting. They met at a modest cafe in the West Village, its wooden tables and mismatched mugs a far cry from Orium's glitz. Margaret, stripped of her Chanel armor, looked smaller, her eyes weary. Claire, she began, her voice soft. I was wrong. We all were. Can you forgive us? Claire stirred her coffee, her expression unyielding. You mocked me for years, Mom. You chose Ethan's lies over my truth. Forgiveness requires trust. You've given me none. Margaret's eyes glistened, but Claire stood, leaving a $100 0-cents bill on the table. Take care, she said, and walked away. A year later, Claire stood on the tarmac at Van Nuys Airport, her bombardier gleaming under the California sun. Paragon had expanded into Asia, its drone fleet now servicing Singapore, Tokyo, and Seoul. Her net worth had climbed to $12 billion, 0 cents, her name a fixture in Forbes and Fortune. She'd funded a $500 million 0 cents initiative for sustainable aviation, her jet terminal a global model. Ethan sold used cars in Stamford, Connecticut, his Rolls-Royce a distant memory. Lauren lived in a one-bedroom in Hoboken, her influencer days over. Richard rarely left his Florida estate, his phone calls to Claire unanswered. In her office, Claire kept a small box. Inside was Ethan's resignation letter, its ink faded but potent. Beside it was a note from Aunt Eleanor, written before her death. Success blindsides, Claire, let it. Claire smiled, tucking the box away. She'd blindsided them all, and the world was hers to shape.